Welcome to District Talk. This week, we're speaking with Luke Fleck from Eastern Title. How are you doing, Luke?
I'm good, Chad. Thanks for having me in.
Yeah,
Looking
absolutely.
forward to it. Yeah.
Eastern Title is out of Rockville, Maryland?
North Bethesda, Rockville, same thing.
Okay, all
Once
right.
upon a time, it was South Rockville.
South Rock. Is there such a thing as South Rockville?
Not anymore.
Okay. So Bethesda sort of like kind of took over the...
It was good for property value. North Bethesda looks better. It's a better zip code. It sells more real estate with North Bethesda. So
Okay, all
a few
right.
years back, they made that change. It was a
Okay.
little before I got into the industry, but I do know that where I'm at was Rockville once upon a time.
Interesting. So it's no longer South Rockville.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
got it. Okay. So everybody, Luke is an account executive with Eastern Title out of North Bethesda. And this week we thought we would dive into title and settlement and kind of give you an idea of what that is and why it's important to a real estate transaction. Right?
Yep. I mean, title is one of the three pillars for your real estate transaction. You're most likely working with a realtor, a lender, and a title guy. So we're the third part of that triangle. And
Yeah.
I'm just here to shed some light on what I do and hopefully give you guys a better idea of what you're getting into.
And I think that's one thing that just folks don't know. I think, from a lender's perspective, right?
Right.
People know what a realtor is and they know what a lender is, but they're not sure about the title and the settlement agent. And for starters, what you do, why you're important, why you're part of the transaction.
Right.
So can you kind of dive into what title is and why it's important into, in respect to the transaction of a property?
Yeah, absolutely. So what a title and settlement company does is we prepare a chain of title and we ensure you that when you're buying a property that you have a clear and marketable title.
Okay. So why is title important? What even is title?
Title is the ownership of that property. It is your deed. And then the security instrument along with that deed if you have a loan on that property. So it'd be the deed, the purchase money deed of trust, and that promissory note for most transactions.
Okay. All right. So you have the title. So when folks go to settlement, they have your role is to make sure that they have a clean and marketable title.
Correct. We want to make sure that the property you're buying is good. We want to make sure that there's no defects on the title. There's no complications that may arise a few years down the road for you.
So the title, we understand what a title is now, right?
Right.
So walk me through the transaction. So basically we have a buyer, right? We have a contract.
Yep.
And we have a buyer, we have a seller, and what is your role? Walk me through your process.
So what happens is if you're a home buyer and you ratify that contract, the buyer and the seller both sign that contract, and now you'll see that property, it says under contract instead of for sale now. That contract gets into us at the title company. And what we do from there is we send that over to our abstractor. He's an in-house gentleman for us here at Eastern Title. His name's Sam. He will prepare the chain of title for us. So he'll do a title search 60 years backwards in time, and he'll make sure that there's no defects, no liens, nothing on the property that may bring into question later when you own the property or your buyer owns the property, if you would.
Okay, so you said 60 years. So
Correct.
we don't worry about what happened prior to 60 years?
So we go back 60 years because depending on the jurisdiction, Maryland specifically, that's enough to historically prove that there's no defects on the title. Going further back is a waste of the abstractor's time, and quite frankly, it's just anything that's happened more than 60 years ago most likely isn't currently affecting the title of that property.
So if there was an issue, it's not there's nothing going to happen.
No.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. Okay. So sorry, not to get you off track.
No.
But so you kind of walked us through the process of.
So I talked about the first step of the process. As soon as you send us the contract, we get Sam in. Sam does the abstract. Once the abstract's complete, that's what a lot of people refer to as the title work. So if you're communicating with your title person and they're saying, oh, we're waiting on title work to get back, we're waiting for the abstractor to finish looking up the chain of title, making sure everything's good to go, and then they send it to our processor. What the processor's job is to do is to look at everything that's currently going on with the property. So we're making sure that the current owner has no liens against the property. So we'll go to the municipality, say it's a Baltimore City property. We'll reach out to Baltimore City and we'll make sure that we have a lien certificate saying that there's no liens against the property. You know, we're making sure they paid their property taxes, their water bills paid off, their gas, their electric, everything's paid off and zeroed out before we get that deed signed over to the buyer.
So what happens if there is a lien?
We reach out to the seller and we make sure that they pay it, and most likely that's going to be paid out of their funds from selling the house at the settlement table.
So you have a contract, right? So you have both the seller and the buyer's information.
Correct.
You're acting on behalf of the buyer, though, correct?
We're acting on behalf of the buyer, but we're like a third party neutral. We're making sure that everybody gets taken care of the way they should.
Okay.
We have a fiduciary responsibility to our clients, both buyer and seller.
Okay. All right. So you get a contract, right?
Yeah.
What happens once you get the contract? You have a buyer, you have a seller.
So when I get a contract in, what's going to happen is the first thing that's going to happen is the processor for my team is going to reach out to the buyer and the seller, thank them for choosing Eastern Title and Settlement, and then kind of walk them through the next steps that's going to happen in the transaction. On most contracts, they require an earnest money deposit. So
Okay.
the first thing we're going to do is contact the buyer, verify our wiring instructions with them, and receive their earnest money deposit, which for anyone who doesn't know, it's like a good faith down payment that you're actually serious about buying this property, that you want to be involved with this transaction. If the seller backs out, you get your money back. If you back out, the seller keeps that deposit.
Right.
Right?
That's the second question that I get. I get two questions when I'm reviewing a loan estimate. One is, what's title? And the other is, what's EMD? I don't know what EMD is.
Right.
But EMD is earnest money deposit, like he just explained.
So, and what we do is we hold that money in escrow. What a
Okay.
title and settlement company is at the end of the day, we are that middleman that holds everybody's money in a safe account, and then when it comes time for settlement, we disperse all the funds for everyone. So
Okay.
let's rewind it back a little bit. So I get a contract in. My processor reaches out to the buyer, the seller, the real estate agents on both sides, and the lender if there's a lender involved in the transaction. We get everybody on the same page. They're all going to be communicating through that one point of contact. And from there, we're going to have an abstractor. Our personal abstractor, his name's Sam. He runs Salt Abstracts. He works in office with us.
And an abstractor is the guy that does the
chain
title.
of title. So
Okay.
what an abstractor does is they prepare an abstract, which is also known as the chain of title. So they'll do a search on the house or the property or
Okay.
whatever it is. They'll make sure that has a clean and marketable title, and then he'll hand it over to the processor. The processor is going to go through, make sure that the current owner has everything zeroed out, water bills, electric, utilities, whatever it may be. We'll get the lien release for their mortgage, figure out how much the payoff is for their mortgage, so when they go to sell the house, the mortgage gets paid off as well.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
So he's taking care of all that.
That's what we do.
It sounds like he's pretty much the guy that does everything. And
So then from there, right, this is how you know we're the guys who do everything. Because we're the guys who come into that table when it's settlement day. Closing day is what Chad would probably like to call it. Most people have a bell or a gong that they ring whenever they close.
Oh, yeah.
We're the guys who come in with that big stack of papers, asking you to sign here, and sign there.
Yeah. And that's your job.
That's what I do personally.
That's what you
Correct.
do.
So I'm an
as account executive.
As an account executive, I'm also, if there's any lack of communication for whatever reason, or if we need any other, if I need to step in and help my processor, I have the authority to do that and make sure that the transaction is going smooth as well.
Okay. All right. Okay. So speaking of processing, what are some typical documents that, I mean, once they go to closing, what are some typical documents that a buyer should expect to have to?
So the first one, obviously, that comes to mind for me is the closing disclosure.
Okay.
That's something that, Chad's going to send out to the borrower 3 days before closing at the minimum. And what that does, it shows down an itemized description of everything that the borrower is going to be paying at settlement. So it also shows their monthly payment, for their mortgage, which also includes the impounds and escrows, which is the mortgage insurance, homeowners insurance, and property taxes that the lender will take in advance to make sure those get paid and they're not delinquent. So that's part of your mortgage payment. So when you're first looking at it, your mortgage payment might be a little bit more. Right. And then on the next page, it kind of shows everything that they pay for, including owner's title insurance, lender's title insurance, the settlement fees, and everything like that.
Right. So pretty much every closing disclosure is the same, right? Because that's actually a regulation.
Yeah,
they all
correct.
have to look the same. There's no deterring. Every lender, every settlement agent, everybody, we have to have the same closing disclosure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So. Speaking of the closing disclosure,
right?
One of the biggest questions I get towards the beginning of the process is, why do I have to pay for the lender's title insurance?
So that is a good question, and I get asked that even at settlement table, right?
Okay.
What lender's title insurance is it secures the lender for first lien position. So it's like a protection for whoever's issuing the loan. That's why it's mandatory. So as a borrower, if for whatever reason you're not paying your taxes or you're not paying something and someone wants to come use your property as collateral to get their money, that lender's title insurance ensures that lender gets paid first. So before anybody else gets paid out, they're going to get their money for that property.
Okay. So lender's covered. What about the owner?
So like we said, lender's mandatory. The owner's title insurance is an optional payment for the borrower. But from my perspective, I think it's mandatory because what it does is it insures you backwards in time for any defects on the property. So if someone comes out and has a legitimate claim to the property, we're going to take it to court for you because you paid that title insurance policy.
Okay.
For your owner's title insurance. So it's an extra level of protection for your most valuable asset.
Okay. All right. So what would come up? Like what would come up like in a...
The biggest thing that I can think of, right, is say the seller of that property deeded it in a will to an heir.
Oh, okay.
And for whatever reason, that was missed, right? We're not going to say, a title company did their job wrong or anything, but for whatever reason, that was missed. And now, the buyer's living in the property, a couple of years have gone by, someone comes out and says, hey, my family sold that property without me. I was supposed to be an heir for a third of that property, and I never got anything from it.
Yeah.
We take that to court to defend your financial loss.
Okay.
That's what title insurance does for you.
All right. So it's not so much that they are going to come in and take the house from you, but they want some sort of monetary.
Exactly.
Okay.
It protects your most valuable financial asset.
Okay.
And to me, it does say optional.
And it's a couple $100. It's a one-time payment, right? It's not something that you pay regularly.
You pay
it's
it
just
once,
a one-time.
and you pay it at settlement. So on top of all the other closing costs that, $1,000 of a title insurance policy, it's not that much.
Yeah.
You're paying thousands of dollars in property taxes for transfer and recordation. Unless you're a Maryland first-time home buyer, those transfer taxes are waived in Maryland. Only half of your half. The buyer's half.
The buyer's half.
So sure, you may not be paying those.
Yeah.
But that title insurance, you got to get it. You got to make sure that you are protected and that your property is protected.
Because if you don't, and something does come up, then you're looking at cost of an attorney, right?
And fighting it. And
fighting it.
And that could...
And potentially losing.
And potentially losing that claim.
Yeah.
And that you don't want to see that happen.
Okay.
So protect your assets. Get title insurance.
Okay. All right. So going back to the closing disclosure, that's one of the items that the borrower is going to sign at the closing table. Give me is there a couple other important, just kind of give me that, because I know it's usually like a stack like this high, right?
We'll have a stack.
It's like that high, right?
It's going to look like a Bible when I walk in there. You're going to be like, oh man, I'm going to be sitting here signing forever.
Yeah. And a closing, for that matter, takes what, about an hour?
For a buyer, yeah.
For about an hour.
About an hour, give or take,
Okay.
And it really depends on the buyer. Some people are curious, and by all means, this is the biggest purchase of their life up until this point, and they want to know what they're signing.
Sure, yeah.
And then you get the other end of the spectrum. Guys who come in and just take the stack of papers on my hand and just say, give me the docs and we'll sign them all anyway.
I've had that happen a couple of times.
It doesn't matter what it says. They're at settlement. They're going to close it anyways.
So the closing disclosure is obviously important because people want to know where their money is going. Give me a couple other of.
So right after the closing disclosure,
yeah,
we got the settlement statement. It's
Okay.
the same thing as the closing disclosure, has all the same figures, but it has both sides of the transaction. It has the seller and the buyer on one sheet, so everybody can see what's going on here.
Okay.
There's no smoking curtains.
Is that the Alta?
Alta?
Okay.
Also known as the settlement statement.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Past the numbers. The two big ones that every borrower, so if you're a first-time home buyer, unless you got it like that, you're probably going to have a loan or a mortgage on your property. Not many people are buying a $400,000 property for cash.
Right. Okay.
You're going to have a purchase money deed of trust in the state of Maryland. That's also known as your mortgage.
Okay.
With that purchase money deed of trust, there's going to be a security instrument known as a promissory note, which is just your promise to pay back that money you borrowed. So when we go to record that deed, we'll record it with the purchase money deed of trust and the security instrument of the promissory note. And when you pay off your mortgage, you'll get a lien release, and that will be unrecorded.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So you have the closing disclosure. You have basically the intent to repay the promissory note.
Yep.
Right. Anything else that's going to be important that sticks out to you?
I mean,
there's going to be a lot more to it. I know there's a lot more to it.
There's a lot in there,
right?
But there's just.
But if I'm a first time home buyer, like are there any other documents that I need to make sure that I'm paying attention to?
Those are the big two, honestly. The closing disclosure, and then your purchase money deed of trust, which is your mortgage, and then the security instrument with it, the promissory note.
Okay. All right. So we have an idea of what to expect during settlement, the documents, and what buyers should expect. Is there anything else that they should know about?
Yeah. The big thing for all transactions, especially in real estate right now, is wire fraud. Like we all remember, when emails first came around and you're getting emails from, the princes in Nigeria who are trying to get your money for $5 or whatever it is.
Right.
Those same guys have gotten better. And they're not just targeting the regular public anymore.
Okay.
They're targeting real estate transactions. So as you're moving through this, we talked earlier about your earnest money deposit. When you talk to us about our earnest money deposit, our wiring instructions, once we verify those with you, they're never going to change. So you might get a miscellaneous email, someone impersonating, a title company, a loan officer. If you ever get wiring instructions in an email, do not trust them, period. If you're working on a transaction, make sure you call whoever is going to be receiving your money and know that you're getting the right information. Because people are getting better, technology is advancing, they're trying to get your money. Don't fall for it.
So it's almost like they know that you're purchasing a home.
They watch it.
And
That's what they do.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, they watch the MLS, they watch the listings and they see who wins the offer. And they'll target I've seen it with a Navy Fed loan officer. One of my clients actually got hit with wire fraud, and it was devastating. And thankfully we were still able to close, but it was a very hectic situation, and it's scary. So don't.
And in most cases, so we're talking about wires, and for a lot of our first time home buyer listeners, or just any listeners in general, a wire is how you transfer your, what you owe at the end of the day, right?
It's like a direct deposit.
It's a direct deposit.
Yeah,
right,
instead of going to get a check and bringing it to our office, the same way you get your paychecks, we're gonna give you our account information, and you're gonna wire it to us.
Right.
That way, you don't have to print a check. We don't have to wait for the check to clear. It just comes straight through. We hold it in our MOT account, which is a Maryland Housing Trust account.
Okay.
And then it goes to settlement from there.
Okay. All right. So, wow, that is something that, on my end, I don't see a whole lot of as far as like wire fraud goes, because I guess, we don't typically deal with the wire. You guys deal with the wire.
Exactly. And it's something that we're very aware of, and we're very diligent in mitigating. We use top of the line technology services for our clients. Qualia, that's if we ever send you communications, we're not going to send you a regular email. It's going to be a secure, encrypted email with your information, our information, whatever it is. We're using the best product available to protect our clients and ourselves.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. So, okay, so we've kind of walked folks through the process of title and why it's important. We talked about title insurance and why it's important. We talked about the closing and what to expect at closing. Is there anything else that you think that folks should know? I mean, because again, I feel like this is like something that a lot of folks, they know the realtor, they know the lender, but they don't know the title agent.
What I think a big thing is that people should know is that the title company that your real estate agent or your lender is going to send you to, they work together frequently. It is a team. You know, me and Chad and a realtor, that would be the team that's going to take care of you and walk you through this transaction. So what I would say is if you have any questions during your transaction, don't be afraid to ask. And at the end of the day, when you come to settlement, don't be intimidated. Be happy. You're going to walk out of there a homeowner with a set of keys in your hand. Right. So it is a time for celebration. You know, it feels like a lot. It feels stressful because you're signing so many docs, but it's a great day. It
is a celebration. And especially like you said, like you sign docs, but then after the docs are done, you're like, okay,
I'm done here.
I'm done. I own a house. Typically we cheers, we have a little drink.
Yeah.
You take your picture with the
holding the key. Yeah. We said yes to the address.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. So basically what you're saying though is like not to be like stressed out over.
Don't be intimidated.
I think
that's the big one. There's going to be a lot of stuff you don't know, but that's why there's professionals in this industry for you. That's why a realtor exists. That's why the mortgage loan officer. That's why the account executives with title companies exist. We are here for you. We're here for the home buyer. Don't be intimidated and don't be afraid to ask questions. The education is out there, and we're here for you.
Awesome. Very cool. All right, Luke. So thank you for coming by.
Thanks for having me, Chad. This was awesome.
It was great. I mean, it went by so quick too. I mean,
it really did.
It did, and I'm sure there's a lot more that we can talk about, and I can have you back to talk about.
Or maybe we can have you on ours one day too.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love to do that. I mean, I'm sure you have a lot of examples and have been through a lot of, especially with the title insurance portion of it, that you've seen and dealt with a lot, which I'm sure we can get into another time. But that being said, is there anything else that?
No, I mean, be safe, be smart, and be educated. And if you're not educated, reach out to someone like Chad and ask for it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that's great advice to all of our folks, especially our first-time home buyers.
Of course.
Yeah. So, and again, Luke, we appreciate you coming by today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't wait to have you back because I really want to hear about some of these horror stories.
Oh, I got some of them for sure.
And I think we can make a whole podcast about horror stories.
Yeah, between title insurance and wire fraud, we can definitely, it could be like a crime junkie episode almost.
That'd be awesome. Okay. All right, Luke. Okay, so again, we appreciate you stopping by and chatting with us. We'll definitely have you back. And again, to our folks, I appreciate you listening to us this week, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.